or so. Hey, hi everybody.
We should honestly start in the middle of a conversation. Just
I know.
because,
I try. I don't like because well, for everybody who's watching who's not actually here in the call with us, we've just been having a conversation about what a nightmare it is to navigate the world when you have accessibility needs. And but the good news is for everybody who lives in the United States, those problems are all going to go away now because everything's going to be. I have it on good authority from the President of the United States himself that all of our problems are about to be fixed. So
I'm already tired of
winning.
Yes,
to be fair,
I'm tired of winning.
There's a squadron of flying pigs circling the trees around my house at the moment.
With all
Quite
of the way
apart
that
from
they're
the fact that
destroying
he
healthcare and whatnot,
recently-
the people who are most vulnerable are just going to die. So that'll solve a lot of those problems.
Exactly.
It was just
Exactly.
over and over again.
All right, let's just try not to talk over each other.
No, we will.
Each day since he was sworn in, I felt a little more of my life force leaving my body.
Yeah, it's really been something
it
else.
hasn't.
As far as I did not think that. I mean, I have not felt worse than I did after the election, but I did not anticipate how badly I would feel this week. Like I knew I was going to feel badly, but I did not think it was going to be as bad as it was. Mainly because I think I had convinced myself that it wasn't going to be quite as bad as quickly as it turned out to be. Admittedly, the 14th Amendment thing is ridiculous on the face of it, but everything else is kind of like
I think the problem is like, and we ran into this issue when he first got into office last time, is despite all like we shouldn't think this. There's no reason for us to think this, but I think a lot of us still have this thought in the back of our head as, well, somebody's going to talk him out of a lot of this stuff.
For me, it wasn't even so much a matter of he's not going to do what he wants to do. It was more that I was seeing all the Republican infighting and thinking, they're going to beat each other up. And then beyond that, I just thought it's going to take more time. This is going to be dark and it's going to be horrible. But I didn't think it was going to be like this
in the first week.
Dive.
Yeah, like day one, he pardons everybody and tries to erase trans people. And
he repealed the Equal Employment Opportunity Act, which is also executive order. It basically was there to prevent discrimination in hiring. So again, this is not any DEI woke anything.
DEI. It's also accessibility as well too.
This is literally saying you can't discriminate against any in hiring on a federal level. And the thing of all the Republican presidents we've had, none of them even thought of touching that.
Right.
It's been in place for over 50 years. Yeah. Like,
you know what the darndest thing is? So 60. For years now,
60.
People like us have been warning Trump voters. We've been screaming at them all these ways that he would hurt them too. And now you see like white women who voted for Trump along with their husbands and boyfriends who are surprised that suddenly they're having trouble finding work too.
Not enough of them.
They were also DI hires.
I have some rather delightful news.
The frustrating thing
is let Nick finish. Let Nick finish his point.
I see them so shocked and surprised, like, oh, what? I didn't think he was going to do that classic leprosy face thing, but to me, it's like we warned you. We told you for years and years, and all you had to do was believe us. Trust that we were looking out for you and not just ourselves. And they couldn't do that because we're not part of their in-group. We're the out-group. So, of course, they don't trust us. It is just so frustrating. All they had to do was believe us when we told them what he would do to them.
See, that's the thing, though. Like, I'm looking at that, and I see what you're seeing. I see those, like, I didn't think the leopard would eat my face posts. But the thing that, maybe it's me, having been burned now twice, by not believing this. But I'm like, it's not enough. It's not enough of them.
Well, the problem too is that even the stuff that is happening, like I got an argument with somebody last night where I'm like, she's like, oh, it's going to be great. I'm like, no, it's already not great. And she said, well, don't believe the lies. I said, I referenced the, equal employment opportunity thing that I just mentioned. And she's like, no, he didn't do that. I'm like, here's a fucking article that's not from a liberal source. He did this. Here's him signing it. The way he does like a little child, where he likes to hold it up. Look what I did.
But I have a delightful piece of Schadenfreude.
Go ahead.
Remember I told you my cousin voted for Trump?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I told you he was having a lake house built, supposedly. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Apparently, all his Mexican employees down tools and walked off site.
Yeah, I mean,
and took half. They didn't take the backhoes and everything because they couldn't, but they took all the hand tools.
I will say one.
And he doesn't know where they've gone, and all that was left was this one message: "Lo siento." I'm sorry.
That's wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful.
I will say one.
I saw
into the structure of his house. I only found out about it because my aunt got on Facebook chat, because I chat with friends, and some of them chat. I have the most dreadful news from Chris, and I'm thinking, okay, Chris, who? Christopher's my cousin. Okay, I said, okay, what's the news? His children are ill, his wife's ill. The Mexican workers at his lake house have downed tools and left, and he doesn't know where they've gone.
The Mexicans that he probably wants deported.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw one.
Yeah, they've downed tools and left before
I saw one better though. It was a U.S. military veteran, and he's pleading to Trump, because of the hiring freeze. So apparently he and his wife, they lived in Georgia. She got offered a job with the VA, and they moved to Texas, bought a house. Well, due to the hiring freeze, her job offer was rescinded after they bought the house and moved in. And we have no income now, and you couldn't possibly have meant us. It's like, yeah, he meant you.
He meant you, my dude.
He doesn't care about you.
As far as far be it from me to say anything as positive has come out of this, and I will admit that this is inadvertently positive, seemingly, but there's a lot more talk now in the Iranian and Iranian American community that something in Iran is going to change, and there may actually be a shift there, partially because their economy and everything there has been so decimated by all the sanctions and by everything else, and frankly the corruption of their own system. And now, having lost Hamas and having lost Hezbollah, they essentially have lost the chess match in the Middle East. And now with Trump coming in and Netanyahu consolidating that much power, it's the Islamic Republic has actually lost its moves. So you're seeing a lot of these exile communities basically, and some of them including the Shah's son, which gives me my own little bit of pause, but saying, look, you want to stay out of war, we gotta change something. And if you want me to help, I can do it.
But which way are they going to swing? Are they going to swing for Sunni Islam, which is kind of
they'll never swing
affiliated to the West? But are they going to swing to the Sufi Islam, which is slightly more radical? I don't mind either. I think both have merit.
I don't think they're going to change the version of Islam that they follow.
80% of Iranians are Shia Muslims. They're not going to shift. The question is, are they going to come out of a theocratic government? That's the question.
Yeah.
One of the most depressing things just about, not just now, but recent years, is how much the right throws the term mentally ill around. It's like, this graph shows why liberals are mentally ill. This shows why people who don't like Trump are mentally ill. But even then, when they call it trans people mentally ill, or so on, it's obvious why they do that. It's so they can kill you. When they call you mentally ill, they're saying, we revoke your personhood, so we can do anything we want to you. We can strangle you on a subway. We can burn you alive on a subway. We can do it. Yeah, I hate it so much.
Me too.
Disabled people were disabled people were the first people in the camps in the Hitler's regime, too, because they for the master race, they also wanted able-bodied people, or it's not just a purity of whiteness and blue hair, blonde hair, but of ability. They did want the test tube babies if they could.
Yeah.
Especially as the phone's gone nuts over this past week, and one of the things that came up was with the social worker said, do you think you're on the scale? And I looked and said, what do you mean? He said, do you think you're on the scale, as in the neurodivergence scale? And I said, well, I've never been told I am. And so she got me a test, and the chap came in. He was very nice and all these questions. He kind of looked at the score and went, yes. Tell me something. Do you try and dominate the conversation in Zoom calls? And I kind of went, oh, hells. I go, yeah.
What a
ding, ding.
Specific
you get so fixated on a subject and being sort of, you want to get your point across, that you literally force feed your point of view to everybody.
Kara, I'm just casually sitting here drinking my coffee.
Said, I don't think you're autistic, but I think you're on the scale to some degree, and you don't realize it. And he said, and I said, yeah, well, an adult diagnosis isn't going to help me now. I said, no, but it might get you moved quicker, and it might get you some more help if you need it. And I said, and he said, and you'll know if you're lecturing the care workers that come in about whatever you're lecturing them about.
Just a piece of advice for anybody who suspects that may be autistic: don't get an official diagnosis. Like, let's say you want to move to a country. Many countries just flat out will not accept autistic people. I don't know why they hate us. They just do.
Yeah. I want to get to, we have 4 people have hands up now, so I want to start working through there. So Isaiah, you were the first to have your hand up. Go for it, buddy.
Yeah, speaking of what's going on with disabled people, and I know Steve is going to hate me when I say this, but I've actually thought about buying a firearm. An autistic person. I was a minority autistic person in the South. I've already bought bear spray, which I guess is a better degree than pepper spray, but I've been like tinkering with the idea of probably buying a firearm.
Just make sure you have all your paper. Just to make sure you have all your paperwork. You follow the laws as close as you can. Recommend also define the firing range as well too, to get practice it, get training with it, to know how to use it. Familiar yourself with the laws in Florida as well too.
I was going to say, you're in Florida, so also be ready for them to shoot back. Because you're in Florida.
Find your local Socialist Rifles Association or your local John Brown gun club if you can find them. If they're advertised, if you can find them online, as it were too. Who knows? And they
should be there in Florida. They should be there.
The what do you call it? Robert Evans put out a really good list of things you should do before buying a firearm.
Yes.
To make sure that's the step you want to take, to make sure you're comfortable with the weapon before you make any purchase that would put you on any sort of list as far as, people who might be dangerous to the building order that also are armed.
And that was the other thing. Somebody mentioned in the Zoom chat that, I mean, I am a minority, but I don't look like a minority. But I would be concerned as somebody who does visibly appear as a minority, or even is listed as a minority, frankly, that if they're going to my house for whatever, the authorities are coming to my house and they pull up my record and they show that I own a gun. I'm just afraid that's game over right there.
They're going to just assume that they need to come in with guns drawn, and there you go. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I don't have one.
Another irony about owning a gun, or not owning a gun, but using a gun, actually using the gun, shooting people, is that you're going to likely be judged mentally ill. Mental illness is associated with mass shooting, which is bullshit.
Well, to go the other way of if you're going to own a gun for self-defense, are you willing to pull the trigger?
Two rules for carrying a gun: don't carry a gun unless you're willing to draw it. Don't draw it unless you're willing to use it.
Edie, your hands up. Go for it.
So I'm just thinking with this.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Hello.
So, happy MLK month, guys.
It's been great so far. We've got 5 days left. I think we can pull it out.
5 days left, guys.
5 days left, and then February's Black History Month, and won't that be great?
History Month.
That's going to be fantastic.
That's right. keeping it positive.
Yes.
No, Trump, he'll try and cancel that too.
And don't let Republicans pretend that they wouldn't hate him if he was still alive.
Oh God,
they would hate MLK.
They would hate him to the bottom of their soul. They still do.
I've always said
he's a socialist.
He was hated when he was alive. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Yes, he was really hated when he was alive.
He was.
Yes.
But these days, you have them saying shit like, "Oh no, we're fine with MLK. In fact, if he was alive now, we think he'd be a conservative. We think he'd be a Republican."
Oh,
yeah,
no.
sure he would.
If he
was hated by liberals right then.
Yeah, if he was
Sure
alive today, they would do the same things they did before.
Yeah.
I would call MLK Day just basically just white people patting themselves on the back for lackluster ways to fight racism.
Even though many of those white people are the white moderates that MLK
warned us about.
You can always tell
from jail.
You can always tell when one of them either hasn't read Letters from a Birmingham Jail or is hoping that you haven't. Is hoping that you have it, because like the whole I'm disappointed in the white moderate thing, like they never ever acknowledge that. Like
no. But two things really quick, and one is a suggestion for Steve in an upcoming video essay, and I know you plan these things way in advance.
Okay.
Neil Gaiman, because as being a person who's been involved in AV of conventions, and I've been kind of like, with Marion Zimmer Bradley, with the issues that we had with Isaac Asimov and whatnot, I'm extremely disappointed, but I'm not in that stage of grief that so many of his true fans are. And I've been thinking about the nature of fandom itself. Sometimes it can bring the good thing about fandom is that it brings good people together, and you can make those networking. You can get to know different people. But the other part of it is that the nature of fandom kind of sets some very vulnerable people up to be predated on. And I've been thinking about this, I think, way too much. And that's probably why I'm just like, meh, with the whole Trump shit. It's actually, come to think of it, Trump got on TV. He was just known to those of us who grew up on the East Coast as a regional real estate developer. It was being on TV that really put him in the national eye. And that's a fandom in and of itself. People voted for him based on, this aura of God knows what, right? And this is how we got Trump. It's due to fandom and not necessarily due to making you feel good. It's just getting all these people together who just resent living in a multicultural society. And the whole grab him by the you-know-what thing, that was Neil Gaiman.
Yeah. Well,
right? Because he was a star, right?
Yeah.
Well, I approach it, honestly, the whole Neil Gaiman thing from a slightly different perspective, and it's only because of where I grew up and when I grew up.
Okay.
Which is, I grew up, and I was 19 years old in Boston in 1995. So I was hanging around in that 1995 to 2000 era. I was hanging out in the goth scene in Boston. So I actually not well, but I knew Amanda Palmer, and I saw as she became famous, the kind of cult of personality she had developed around her, and the kind of just glomming onto her that people would do, and the way she thrived off of that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that she was a groomer, but I can definitely see the people that she was attracting to her would have been immensely attractive to Gaiman, given his predilections.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the reasons I've never used my real name on fan fiction sites, and I've never ever divulged who I am on fan fiction sites. Because
beyond that, I to your original point, Edie, like I actually did a live stream on this, I don't know, about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, that in my opinion, all fandom is toxic. Now, not every fan is toxic for sure, but every it doesn't matter what type of fandom, whether it's literature, movies, comics, whatever, there's a toxic element in it, and some are worse than others. And it's why I've kind of come to the conclusion I've stopped being a fan. There's things I like, but I basically don't engage in fandom anymore, because it doesn't matter whether you like something of that property, you don't like it, whatever it is, no matter what your criticisms are or your reason why you like it when other people don't. There's someone who absolutely hates you for it for no particular reason, because they're so fragile in their own feeling that they can't tolerate that you feel somewhat differently, and so I've basically rid of it. And I guess another thing, it was easier for me too, because I've never followed any particular authors. I mean, probably the closest will be Larry Niven.
Right.
I've never followed any director or any actor or anything like that. So I just take things as they come. The only thing and even now, like the Mets have been my team, and I'll still watch them and I'll still want them to win, but I am emotionally disconnected from them. So if they fail, oh well,
it's okay.
People put so much of their own self-worth into those things, and so that's why I can imagine, look, if someone was a big Neil Gaiman fan and you find out this stuff about him, I can see people just being distraught, like, oh my God, what can I do? So
I wrote a really interesting.
I wrote a kind of a fanfic about Terry Pratchett, because I'd read something by, because it was Neil Gaiman who worked with him to a degree. He worked with him with a
Good Omens.
Yeah, Good Omens. That's the one. Thank you, Edie. And I wrote one for The Shepherd's Crown, which kind of, because about Esme Weatherwax and how she wanted to put and apparently according to, it wasn't Gaiman, it was somebody else who worked with Patrick, who said she wanted to put a consciousness into you, the cat. So I wrote this very short fan fiction where she puts a consciousness into you and death can't take her. I got 2 very vicious emails on my fan fiction. One said, "I hope you fall naked into a cactus patch," and the other one said, "How dare you try and finish off
at least that was creative.
How dare you finish off, try and ameliorate one of the most beautiful endings to Pratchett, that of the death of Granny Weatherwax." And I replied to one of them, which was so stupid. Never replied.
Never replied.
I replied, said, "Why? I'm sorry that you haven't received your copy, and I've spoiled the ending for you. But really and truly, I'm only trying to kind of ameliorate it to the other fans who didn't. Oh, you shouldn't act like that. You've destroyed the book for me." And I just left it. I thought, even my husband who read it, because I was quite upset, and he read it, "Don't reply. Don't reply. For the love of God, Cara, don't reply. Just let it sit
Why is she writing? Why is she reading a fan fiction until she's read the book?
Exactly. What are you even here for?
Recently, there was a post about, it was a clip from Friends, and it was, I hated that show. And this particular clip,
me too.
This clip was particularly like mind-numbing, and all I said was, "This show never made me laugh." That's it. I didn't attack anybody.
Yeah.
And the vitriol, and Steve, I think
oh God,
you saw the one thing I posted. This guy is like, what are you, a rapist? You must kick puppies. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, what's wrong with you?
The thing is, the identity of elder millennials everywhere.
The thing that's so ridiculous is, like, because I know, like, Serious Mind, you and I have known each other for a long time. We mostly agree, generally speaking, on our taste in like movies and TV shows and stuff. There are one or two things that we really disagree on, that things that you like and I have no use for, and vice versa. It's never ever occurred to me to think of you as like a bad person because you don't like the Kelvin timeline Star Trek movies or something. Like, it's a disagreement on the quality of a thing. It has nothing to do. It's never made me want to get mad at you.
Right.
Like,
have you heard about The Stranger? Have you heard what The Stranger said?
It's like you like the prequel movies. I can't get into them. I watched them with my mum. Her she was kind of suffering from senile dementia, and her heart was going, and she liked the movies because they were just basically, you know, firestorms, if you like. But she could sit and watch them and just kind of relax and not do anything. I didn't much like them, but it meant I could spend some time with my mum. But it's like the time there was this absolutely gorgeous guy at university, and I went up to him, invited him out for a drink, and I leaned across the table, took his hand and said, "Martin, I adore you, I want to go out with you." And he looked at me and said, "Cara, that's very sweet, but I'm gay." But I wouldn't go out and take a knife and stab him 30 times because he told me he was gay.
And that's
I was hurt, and I was a bit kind of, oh my God, I just kind of throw myself under the bus.
It's embarrassing. It's not, but it's not, clearly the person's not making a value judgment on you in that situation.
No, that's the thing.
But that's just it, though. People, they put so much of their own self-worth in it that basically anything, so they take anything that differs from what they think as an invalidation. And it actually had people say, like, I said, like, I didn't like something, and someone said, "You're saying that," they got angry at me. I'm like, "Well, what's up with that?" And they're like, "Well, you're saying that you don't like it and no one else should like it either." I'm like, "You're projecting hard, man, because I didn't say that."
It's one of the reasons.
I watched like, no spoilers here at all, but like the Section 31 movie. Shockingly, we're going to bring up Star Trek.
I was going to get to that, so go ahead.
But like, I watched it and I went through it and I was enjoying it, but I was like, at the same time, I was also like looking at the clock, and I was like, I think I like this, but there was something not quite, and I couldn't put my finger on it in the way that I could with some episodes of like, or frankly, more of Picard as it progressed in each season and whatnot. But that said, like, I walked away from it having been like, I think I like this. And then I sat down and watched like Steve's review and Trek Culture's ups and downs in there. I'm like, this was it. Yeah. I noticed, Steve, like, for instance, you in your review of it, and again, no spoilers here, but like there were a lot of Easter eggs in the movie, but they were not Lower Decks style Easter eggs. They weren't
like thrown right in your face. Yeah.
They were just there. And if you didn't know anything about it, they would just pass you by. And I appreciated that. I noticed you didn't call them out in your review either.
No, because and also it kind of depends on what if we go by what Easter eggs used to be, which is, that's what an Easter egg was. It was something that was not drawn attention to. And, so if you see like, oh, the half black, half white guy, in Giorgio's club at the beginning, like, oh, that's from that episode of classic Trek. But there's no, like, that guy, they don't tell you who he is. They don't give you like a backstory. He's just there. It's just, oh, that's just what that guy looks like.
In fact, that's why they were called Easter eggs, because you had to find them like an Easter egg.
Right, exactly. Yes. But the thing I wanted to mention about the Section 31 movie that ties into this, and it ties into what Serious Mind was saying about fandom, it's one of the reasons why I always grit my teeth a little bit when I'm giving a negative review to something. Because like I didn't like the Section 31 movie. I didn't think it was good, but I didn't think it was anywhere close to like the worst Star Trek thing. It's just kind of lousy, you know what I mean? But it's not like, it's not as bad as the worst Star Trek thing I've ever seen. But I knew that there would be certain people who would see me giving it a negative review, no matter how measured my negativity was, no matter how hard I tried to articulate specific things that I didn't like about it, instead of just shitting on it, right? That would take that and go, yeah, all the new Star Trek sucks, and all these people who make it should just be run out of Hollywood. And I'm like, okay, can we
see? That's the thing. Like, Steve, like, I'll watch other, and I'll let you get back to your point. I'm sorry, but like, I watch other Trek review channels, and I'm not going to mention any other names. Some of them came out real negative, and once it starts becoming like, feeling like because they didn't like it, somebody killed their puppy. I turn it off. Like, this isn't helpful now.
Right.
No.
Yeah, it was.
That's what I'm talking about with the extremism that can there's this extremism that sets up. There's this extremism that sets people up for exploitation by either creators or people who are adjacent creators. And then there is this narrowing of the mind to divergent points, divergent criticisms. And it can also be kind of like this mob mentality as well. You know, let's beat up, somebody said, oh, let's beat this person up, or let's beat up this series, this movie, whatever. Let's beat them up. Because I have nothing, I don't have anything else to do. No knitting. I don't have to clean my bathroom, nothing. All I can do is be a keyboard warrior and just have this toxicity directed to that. And that's basically what I was thinking about. I said, you know, I think this would be a great thing for Steve to do. And also so I can like shut up so that other people can talk. As the daughter of Panamanian and Honduras immigrants, of Belize actually immigrants, man, oh man, guys, I don't know what Panama did to catch strays like this. I don't even think Trump knows, to be honest. You know?
I mean, it's just
they took ownership of the canal that is in their country. That's what they did.
It's a country of brown people. Of course, they were going to catch smoke.
Oh, apparently, according to this could be an urban myth, but I only caught the end of it on a YouTube channel because sometimes I have them on while I'm sort of getting dressed in the morning, and it was chanting away. And someone said apparently he signed an executive order that says everybody's female.
Yes, I know about
inadvertently,
that.
Mrs. Shives, how good to see you.
He doesn't realize
non-binary, but
he doesn't realize that he said that he did that, but he did. Because they're saying that basically your gender begins at conception.
At conception,
which technically we're non-gendered at that point.
Yeah,
then,
there's no differentiation.
And then we differentiate from there.
Everyone's non-binary.
Well, that's what I think is kind of funny about the people that are trans deniers. I'm like, you know, and especially to the men, like, you were once female in utero. You were female for a while until your the bud changed and you guys...
we have two genders now. That is the law of the land. It's been
man and political.
So last thing, I posted an angry about that because I've got many trans and NB friends, and I'm like, hey, all you fucking people who said you were, and just that's the thing, I'm as mad as I am as the people who, and this is why I actually raised my hand, as mad as I am at the people who voted for Trump, I'm really angry at the people who didn't want Trump, but sat back and let it happen. And the first time, okay, whatever, you know, you didn't know better. Now you goddamn know better. And so there was something I posted yesterday. Trump calls to clean out Gaza and move Palestinians to Egypt and Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
So look, I get what there were people that were angry at the Biden administration for the handling of Gaza. I totally understand it. But my thing was, okay, that's bad. It's so my choices are bad or worse. If I have to choose between bad or worse, I'm going to choose bad.
Look, you have to understand. Their perspective was, well, Biden is already handling this so badly. How could it get any worse?
But
it's already apocalyptic.
But he campaigned on worse.
He already get worse.
He campaigned on worse. He talked about letting Israel annex Gaza and annex the West Bank. So he was already campaigning on worse. That's what gets me about some of the stuff he's doing this week that people are shocked at. No, he literally said he was going to do this shit. Why? How can you be shocked?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just shocked that this is all being done in the name of religion, more or less.
Oh God!
Well,
which actually
I don't know how shocking that is.
If it's okay, I would like to bring up something not related to any of this because I feel like I'm going crazy.
Go ahead.
My anxiety score. Okay, so this is a bit random, but it's a media literacy, like basic comprehension thing. Has anybody here seen the first Ice Age movie?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
Been a bit,
long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been on kind of an Ice Age kick lately, and while the movies quickly fell off, I think the first couple are pretty good, and the first one I think is very underrated. Like, okay, you got these three characters who are looking after a human kid, and each of them has a kind of void. You know, between Manny losing his family, Sid's family abandoning him, and Diego's pack just being jerks to him. Each of them is like missing something that, you know, the kid is able to help them with. So for most of the movie, there's this lingering question like, okay, well, is the kid the only thing holding them together? Are the three just going to go their separate ways and forget all of this when the movie's over? And by the end of it, it's like, no, the three have bonded enough, found a family like in each other, that they're going to be okay even without the kid. I think that's pretty interesting. But probably the most fascinating and kind of frustrating thing about the movie to me, so there's this revelation about halfway through. They're looking at these cave paintings, and you see one of a family of mammoths. And you can see Manny has some trauma. And so, like, unfortunately, a lot of people, most possibly, they see that scene and they assume that Manny was the baby mammoth losing his parents. When I think it's pretty obvious Manny was the dad and he lost his wife and his kid. But I swear, it's like most people, they see that scene and their brains default to the orphan angle. And it just makes you wonder, like, what? It can't just be that people are dumb. And I realized, oh, we are inundated by orphan stories. Yeah. There might be like too many of them even. And I understand why they do that. It's because for a little kid, the fear of losing their parents is simply more relatable than the fear of losing their own kids. So that's about orphans. But that just makes you appreciate all the more that we have a family movie, you know, like for kids about a widower. That is so rare to see that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's what I call the Disneyfication of everything. And it occurs in everything. And I've seen it. I mean, even I did it start with in my first fantasy novel. You can all yell at me later. When I had a female heroine with a male protagonist guiding her. And it wasn't until I started my second one I thought, hang on, why does it have to be a man telling a woman what to do?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be a man being in charge? And it wasn't until I sort of looked back and examined that and thought, and why does she have to lose her family? Why does she have to lose her parents?
See, my initial question was, why is the protagonist and the hero two different people? Like that just initially struck.
It just bugs me when like certain tropes are so overused that people immediately like jump to that.
They assume that it's that,
Yeah.
I mean,
you see it in things like The Dark is Rising. You see it in The Box of Delights, which probably half of you haven't have heard of. You see it in all the Disney films. It's the orphan either losing a beloved father, Cinderella. Sleeping Beauty, she doesn't lose her family, but she's kind of removed from her family. All the Grimm tales, if you read the Grimm, the original ones, which were actually written not as stories, but to examine language and how that changes. Wilhelm and Jakob Grimm were the original philologists, studiers of language and how that changes. So they collected stories. So instead of going up to an old peasant and saying, "What's your word for pig?" They'd go, "Oh, pig." They go, "No, we want your old word for pig." And they said, "But it's pig," because that was the established word. So they said, "No, tell me a story about a pig." And they'd write that down. And that's how we got all the stories, but the stories have endured longer than the actual studies.
Well, and it's not just it's not just, you know, I mean, I think calling it the Disneyfication is accurate because you know, it has had a lot of influence like on storytelling. But I mean, it's look at how many action heroes or protagonists of TV series or films like have at least one dead parent, if not more, you know, even if it doesn't even come into play in the story, you know, like it has nothing to do with the story. It's just part of their backstory. Like, oh, their parents are dead and they're like in their 20s, you know, or their parents are dead, or they have a dead mom or a dead dad. It's just, it's so commonplace that you don't even notice it. Like a few weeks ago, I think I was talking to Jason and we were trying to come up with like major Star Trek characters that we know have both of their parents alive, and it's like almost nobody. I mean, like there's almost every important character in a Star Trek project has at least one dead parent, and most of them are explicitly established as having both dead parents. And you know, when they're young enough that their parents, you would expect, would still be alive. Like they're only like in their 30s or 40s, and their parents have been dead for years.
Bashir's parents are both alive.
Bashir is one. Esri Dax.
They deeply traumatized him.
Riker's father's still alive, but he's a bit of a
Riker has a dead mom.
But his father's still alive, and he's an asshole.
One thing I think is ironic about even the expression Disneyfication is because it's really a change in Disney. Because if you look, people mention Bambi and Dumbo and all that, and they were missing parents and all that, but in those films, like in Bambi, the mother dies in the film.
Yeah.
And it happened a lot in a lot of these things where somebody actually dies. But then at a certain point, Disney was like, we can't have negative things happen in a children's thing. These are for children. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but you did that for years. So like my probably the one most egregious example that I can think of, because I'm just going by movies that I know anything about, is the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh God!
Where in the story he dies horribly in the real story, right? But in this one he ends up he's the king and all this stuff. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like
that all ended was because now the people that are making movies are mostly Gen X and elder millennials, and we all saw the never-ending story, and we're so fucked up by that.
Yeah,
yes,
we're just not.
We're never killing the horse ever again.
One thing about the
most people have never read Les Mis, the whole 6th volume. I'm sorry, I studied it for my English degree, so you can tell where I come from. At the end of the Les Mis, he scoops Esmeralda off the plinth, and into the cellars. But they're both so badly injured that years, I think decades later, when they open the crypt up, they find the 2 skeletons, her spine shattered, and he's got a broken neck, and they're both dead. Happy ending. Let's all go on skipping into the sunset.
Have a good day, folks.
Yeah. I mean, even Les Mis, the miserable.
I wonder why he called it that.
It's not a happy story, kids.
No, none of the 6 books are. I mean, even the one that's the musical about Jean Valjean is not a happy story. Yes. What's his name?
I dreamed a dream of days gone by.
Yeah.
Now life has killed the dream I dreamed.
And all that. Yeah.
Bring the kids.
Is that a MAGA
He was actually trying to make a point about somebody who's a criminal, and that's valid. That you're given this yellow bit of paper. That means wherever you go, you have to present this to your employer, and your employer can basically look at you and go, nope, sod off. And he's making a good point there, and it's not hammered into you. But at the same time, comes a point, I think we get to the 5th or 6th book, and I remember looking at my lecture when we're doing this, and we were doing it in the translation. I said, do you think we can stop now? Because none of them end happily, do they? Said,
it's a little grim.
And he said, there are happy endings for some of the characters. Valjean's adopted daughter and Marius, they go off into the sunset. Yes, but the ones who own the pub that take in Cosette as a child, they survive. And he said, yes, well, you have to think of them like cockroaches. And cockroaches survived anything.
Yep.
And I said, not if me being me and very grim and having lived in the Middle East, I said, not if I put insecticide on them, they don't.
So I just want to add one little thing about the Hunchback movie. So look, I think the happy ending where he walks out of out of Notre Dame and the people finally accept him and he's allowed to just walk around like a normal person. I like that. I think that is a good ending.
Yeah.
What I really respect about that movie is that he doesn't get the girl. Yes. Okay, that's good. That's mature.
Yeah.
And then they made a sequel with a new lady just to be his girlfriend. Okay, you're real nice.
Well, and that was actually probably one of the coolest things about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that as much as Star-Lord tries to rekindle, she doesn't have the same experiences with him that she had previously.
She's a different person.
And here's one, and that actually led me to the idea that, we've all, probably most of us have probably, done that thing, you do that thought experiment. If you could go back in time and with your current consciousness and your memories and go and slip yourself into your prior self, and what would you do and how would you do it? But the funny thing is, I thought about that. I'm like, it wouldn't work because you think about all the relationships that you develop, you know, whether they were friends or romantic or whatever, and you're going to approach those now with the knowledge of that person that you have.
Yeah.
And,
right.
And so you're going to have a level of familiarity with them that you haven't earned.
Yeah.
You might turn them off.
It's one of
and also
there's
things that
I had.
There's things.
Okay, hey, just let him finish. Jesus Christ, he's still talking.
There's things that like there's things that you know like when we first met somebody. There's little idiosyncrasies that maybe didn't bother us now, but maybe after years of them doing the same thing, we got kind of annoyed. And so those little things you might have even thought were cute at the time. Now that you've got the history of, you know, years of it annoying the shit out of you, you may react differently to that than you had before. So again, that would change the way that the relationship's going to go. So you really, even if you could physically do this, you really can't. It's not going to go the way you think it's going to go.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why The Great Gatsby is one of my favorite novels, is because Gatsby's whole motivation in the book is he wants to make things the way they used to be. And he thinks he's finally got enough money and he's finally got enough, you know, status that he can go get Daisy, the girl that he wanted but that was lost to him because of the war and fate and everything. But now they can have everything back the way it used to be and have everything back the way it's supposed to be. Right. And he genuinely believes this. And he's the only one who doesn't see the train coming. Like you're reading the book going, this isn't going to work out, man. This isn't going to work out. This isn't the way it works. Like you can't just go back and fix things the way they were and expect it to just go smoothly. And his seemingly earnest belief that he can do that is what makes it so sad and what makes it so tragic. And like, it's like, everybody knows this is going to end badly, except for you, man.
See, I have to read that now because I never read it before.
I should read it, honestly.
Such a great book. I mean, some people hate it. I respect people's opinions. Some people hate it, but I think it's...
you have to like hate that person that hates your favorite book.
It's one of the things I had a problem with.
I didn't enjoy it when I read it in high school, but I read it again when I was around 30, and I really appreciated it. And again, you may not like it, but I mean, it's a classic, so it's worth reading. It's
one of the things, and I've got a book full of notes about this because I had to plan everything out, and I worked on the basis that life is not sort of a circle or a line, but life is kind of there are moments when life can fractal off, which is how I created this character. And throughout her life, and this is how it creates different breakpoints with somebody breaking off to become a Lord of Balance, but still connected to her world in a sort of parallel line. And that was really tough because I'm sort of writing now, do I have her interact with this world? And if so, is she this person's sister or her cousin or somebody so far removed that, oh Christ, she's, you know, I mean, I've got one wonderful point in Soren Reiki, and I've got this note that says, could she be more powerful than Superman? And this is just in the notes, and I'm thinking, I don't know where I can put this in. Anyway, I'll shut up and let Isaiah. Steve, I give you permission to tell me to shut the fuck up.
I just want to mention one thing real quick, and then I know Geek, your hand was up, and then Isaiah, and then CMAC. But it makes me think of The Great Gatsby, and it also makes me think of one of my favorite lines from a Bob Dylan song, and it's not even from one of his more well-known songs. It's from a song he did about 20 years ago. I think I can't remember what album it is. It's one of his relatively more recent albums, and the song is Mississippi. And there's a line in Mississippi that says, you can always come back, but you can't come back all the way. And there's something about that line that just stabs me. I'm just like, oh, isn't that fucking life? Like, you can always come back, but you can't come back all the way.
That's one reason I wonder, like, I know you did a review a couple of years, or maybe a few months ago now, but I think it was maybe a couple of years ago, of the DiCaprio Great Gatsby.
Oh yeah, I talked about it in my video.
And, yeah, and I'm wondering, because that movie hit before this recent wave of nostalgia bait hit. I'm wondering if somebody dropped an actually good Great Gatsby movie in the middle of all this shit right now, it would be a hell of a statement against this nostalgia culture.
Yeah, because that's you know, that's a major point of the book, is that it's poison, it's toxic. Like you if you get it's and it's hollow, like it's a, you know, it's like a siren song.
I feel like it would suffer the same way that anti-war movies do as well, or anti-cop shows, where it would almost be impossible to actually have the message land the way you want to and actually keep true to the book enough, because like as it's setting it up, and that's really where the forget the director's name that did the more recent one kind of failed.
Baz Luhrmann.
He made it look like, you know.
See, I think I would relate to it based on what you're telling me, Steve, because I actually there was a point in my life where when I started to become more successful and was straightening my life out and everything, and then all the failed relationships that I had, and I was like, well, maybe I could try to rekindle that or do that, and then there was a point in my life I finally realized that person has moved on and they don't think about you at all. Stop wasting your fucking time, you know, pining over something that's never going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And also another thing to recommend, obviously another thing to recommend The Great Gatsby, aside from what it's about and its message and everything, is the writing is gorgeous. I think the last page of The Great Gatsby is the finest writing I've ever encountered in my life. But anyway, so Geek, your hands up.
Yes, okay. So there are several things I want to jump in and like I mentioned this time, but it's just like we're short time. So the usual, please give money to my friends. Actually, I was like just DMing with like a Phoenix, because I'm actually frequently in like their DMs. And no, they DM me. We have a bunch of conversations. Just like, how are you? What's Archie been up to? Archie's their cat as well.
What's the point?
So give Phoenix money, please. Just like they always they're stressed about money right now. They always need money. It's the same spiel as before. Like they're hoping that they'll get on SSI or SSDI, if that's still around, by April. So, like, until then, they need money for all the bills. And also, Joanna Roberts needs money, as always. I'm also flat broke, pretty much. For all intents and purposes, I'm flat broke until, like, payday as well, too. So, I'm unable to give money to my friends as well, too. So, I hope that, like, others will step up and give money to my friends. And that's it. Now,
and links are all and links for all of that stuff is in the live chat. You just put that stuff in the live chat right now. So if anybody
I'll have to roll a dice on that one, because I do give money every month, but I have to roll a dice to choose somebody like the fifth or sixth down the list. I can only afford to give one or two people, and that's a minimum, and I feel guilty for missing out people.
Yeah, I feel that way, especially since I have 5 or 6 friends that I try to help out. But CharioLinks.page as well for like general links, and I did put like links to like the LA fires in like CharioLinks.page. It's in like the top link as well too. Okay, now Isaiah.
Okay, Isaiah.
I have 2 things. They're really short.
Go for it.
One is good. One is, I guess, not so good. So which one do you want to hear first?
The not so good first.
Yeah, give us the not so good. Give us the not so good.
This actually kind of goes back to disabilities that we talked about earlier. Has anyone ever like worked like being autistic and maybe like a minority, but has anyone ever like worked in a business where like based on who you were, you just didn't like fit in with the culture, I guess? Because I used to work for like a construction company. It was like a bunch of rural white folks that employed a bunch of like black folks, and like I just never fit in with the company because like I would always like talk proper, and I actually got made fun of for the way I talk, because I talk like this.
Yeah.
I got made fun of by some of the black people on the company when I would clean the band. So so sometimes like just being like, I guess, on the spectrum, and you don't act like a stereotype, I guess people judge you for that too.
I've been called a sellout because I'm an engineer. I'm like, what would you have me be, a janitor?
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Oh, when I worked for
into good news.
Yeah.
When I go to Cape Canaveral in April, I'm probably going to get to see Norm Thagard. Norm Thagard is an astronaut who flew in the space shuttle.
Yeah.
I think he was the first on the Mir space station. And he's also
cool. Yeah.
He's from the Tallahassee area. He's from Marietta, which is a couple miles north of here. So Marietta, excuse me. Nice. And he also flew when they had those blue coveralls that they used to wear.
Oh yes.
Which I'm gonna be wearing when I'm down there. So I wonder if he can like say how authentic I copied the.
That's cool.
You've got to take, if you're wearing one of them, you've got to get him to autograph it, and then the next time we're on the Zoom call, you've got to sit there with his autograph right across the front.
I'm gonna get it on a book. I may even see Eileen Collins too.
Oh boy! Nice. Speaking of nostalgia, those blue space shuttle flight suits. Oh my God, I remember those from when I was a kid. When you'd see them, when you see the astronauts walking, to the.
It brings up a
shuttle.
very specific feeling.
They replaced them because of what happened with Challenger. They had to give them pressure suits, but
that's like a very precious memory from my childhood. Seeing the shuttle astronauts.
I'm just a couple years older than you, Steve, so it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, because and when I was that's to me even more so than seeing astronauts in spacesuits. Mentally, that's what astronauts dressed in, those blue flight suits, because that's, because then you could tell who everybody was, you could see that they were human beings, and it's that's what an astronaut looks like.
And also I'm wearing it. So there's a ride that I'm hoping to ride. It's called the Shuttle Launch Experience. It simulates an actual shuttle launch. So
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Okay, we're running down. We're running out of time, but Joe, your hand's up. Go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to when we were talking about Section 31 and that sort of fine but not rate sort of, or maybe even lousy, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Where it to me, that sort of stuff comes down to where, and you had mentioned it in your review, where it hints at ideas, and when an adaptation or a work that is working with a thing that just screams ideas and then just doesn't do it, oh man, the iRobot adaptation, the freaking zombie thing, World War Z, where it's adapting something with thoughts and ideas and things and just making it a basic empty action movie.
I did like them.
It's so easy. It's so easy to just take that personal, and there is a bit where it does seem less likely that there'll be a proper adaptation that actually goes into the ideas because this thing exists, but it doesn't make the otherwise fine action movie. People lost their minds about iRobot, and it's fine. It's not good. It's not. It doesn't fit the name properly, but it's fine. There's no reason to hate it. It's just
no. There's no reason, and there's no even though I didn't think it was a good movie, there's no reason to hate the Section 31 movie either. It's not even to me. It's not even the people. Every time there's a bad Star Trek thing, there are always a certain number of people in the audience who act like it's the first bad Star Trek thing. And I'm like, where have you been for the last 60 years? A lot of it is bad. It's
everybody's commenting on how it's it was clearly meant to be a series, and it's been into a 90-minute movie. And I completely agree. It suffers from all those flaws. But the one that I don't see anybody commenting on, which seems to be the most obvious, is the literal closing shot of the movie.
Where the space station.
Them just standing there as if they're going to get ready to go on a new adventure.
Yeah. Well, the thing, one of the general sort of qualities of the movie that I find fascinating and frustrating, and it's not as egregious as the second season of Picard. It's not anywhere close to that level of how the hell did this happen, but it's that same kind of thing, is because I know that this movie has been in development for so long, first as a series and then as a standalone film. This has been in the pipeline for so long, and yet when you watch the movie, it feels like it was written over a weekend. I mean, there are so many things about it that are just, that feels like if they did they write a second draft of this? Like,
you know,
maybe they fed it into a computer and AI churned it out.
Well, it makes me wonder, Steve, if the fact that they took something that was supposed to be a series and did kind of cram it together, and then it's really an editing thing. Like, how did you decide what pieces? And maybe some of the things, like I remember about stuff that kind of where nothing's really happening, and you're like, why is that there? That would have been filler stuff in a series that might have made sense, but in a 90-minute movie, like, we don't have time for this shit. Why is this here?
Yeah, well, and like, I mean, it's not as if they shot it as a series and then had to cut it to 90 minutes. Like they knew, but by the time they actually went into production, they knew it was just going to be a movie. And
but I mean, as far as the script, though, it's like they edited this script that was a bigger script down into a movie, and they did a bad job of doing that.
I do think so. I mean, I don't know. I have no insight into the process. I don't know, but it does feel like, especially with things like this, where if someone like me, who is just someone in the audience, notices, like, not even just mechanical problems, just like there's a character in the movie who is a shapeshifter, and that never comes into play. Like, it's a spy movie. It's a spy movie where at one point they suspect that there's like a mole in their group. One of them is a shapeshifter. It doesn't come up. I'm like, well, I think one person accuses him, like, well, maybe it's you. You can look like anybody. And he's like, it's not me. And then that's it. I'm like, didn't anybody read this script and go, you know, if we're going to make this guy a shapeshifter, maybe that should come up at some point. Otherwise, why have him be a shapeshifter? And they use it for like a joke a little bit. And they use it for like, well, we had a plan that we're not going to do now. And in that original plan, he would have shapeshifted to look like somebody. But it's like, why is this character the way they are if it has nothing to do with the story?
He had 5 minutes more story.
You can kind of tell that I'm gonna jump in terms of process. You can kind of, and I apologize for that. You can kind of tell they didn't do a table read, the script.
It feels like that.
Because I've been in a number of table reads, and that's that. And once you're at that table read, and for a movie, whether it's like a TV movie or a major motion picture, that is when that inconsistencies come out, because the actors themselves will say, you know what, because we still do like method and stuff here. They'll say, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. You even saw that when they did the table read for the Game of Thrones penultimate series. Like you saw actors saying, oh, is that what's going on? And so you can kind of tell that this was, if what your guys are saying are true, I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
That means they didn't do a table read. It was a rush. It was a rush job from series to 90-minute movie. They probably also were not expecting Michelle Yeoh to win the Oscar. So you have a lot of pressure here to push this project forward.
Yeah, I think that might have been part of it.
It sounds like you didn't do a good job. So I'm going to shut up now. Sorry.
It does. It does.
Sorry, there's something I have to share before we live.
Okay,
I
Nick,
won't get another chance.
Yeah.
Please.
Go ahead.
So this is just the proof copy, but I'm releasing another book in about a week. I'll release it on February 1st.
Cool.
Ooh, I gotta pre-order that when I get a chance.
Yeah,
Nick,
when I make my fortune, I'm ordering that. In fact, I'm going to contact Steve to contact you to autograph it, and I'll give him my address, and you can send it to me when I make my fortune.
Nick,
but actually, can I tell you what your review of?
That's great.
I have a question for Nick, real quick.
Section 31 reminded me of.
Yes,
and it's something that Disbrew said, and something that came up. They are morally reprehensible and absolutely necessary. And it reminded me of the end of The Searchers.
Oh yeah,
where he walks away and the door closes on him because he can't live in the world he saved.
Yes.
He saved his niece, he saved his nephew and his wife to be. He's literally saved everybody around him, his family, but he can't live in the world he saved. Which is why at the end, when the door closes and he's walking away, and it took me 20 years to understand that. I saw that at 16.
Yeah.
And it took me 20 years to understand why he has to walk away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he can't stay.
And the Section 31 movie could have used a little bit of that, maybe, because like I got a comment on it on my review earlier today where they said they said something like, well, it sounds like your problem, it sounds like you have a problem because it doesn't fit into pre-established canon, but I thought you didn't care about that. And I was like, no, it has nothing to do with that. Like, this is stuff that's in the movie. Like the movie itself tells us that Section 31 is this super secretive organization that is there to do things that Starfleet can't officially do. And then nothing they do seems out of bounds. So it's like, you tell us in the movie, oh, these are the Black Ops people that do the difficult things to keep the Federation running, and but then we don't see them do anything like that.
And especially given what we have seen of Section 31 in I just finished rewatching Deep Space Nine like last week, and I didn't even remember all the Section 31 stuff, and I saw it again, and I was like, wow. And I got into a disagreement with a friend of mine who was basically making excuses for, because I get, some people will argue, well, why would Starfleet have that? I know why they would, and that was part of their argument. Like, I get it, governments do this shit, and they shouldn't.
Yes.
Or maybe there's a line where there's times when, but my friend started using the argument like, well, the people, like, talking about real world now, the people that do this stuff, well, they know more than us. And I'm like, that I'm not gonna accept that, because that bullshit argument's used for pretty much to excuse anything.
Yeah.
And
sure don't.
And my problem is that with these things existing in the real world, isn't that there might not be some extreme circumstance where you might need to do something wacky. But the thing is that they always use that justification to justify things that aren't that. They always love to bring up what if somebody had the code to a nuclear weapon that was going to go off, and you only had 10 minutes, and would you torture them? I'm like, well, I hope I wouldn't, but I don't know how I would react in something that pressurized. But all the things you're trying to defend aren't that.
Exactly.
And the other thing too is the lack of accountability, right? Because it's like, okay, because my thing is always, whatever we do, if there's some extreme, we do understand that there may be some wacky extreme circumstance that you might have to do something you wouldn't normally do. I get that. But then after the fact, you need to stand tall before the man and explain why you did that and why it's justified. And if you can't, then you're doing something that you shouldn't ought to do.
That's the point. If you're making the argument about, if somebody has the code to nuclear weapon and they're going to set off a nuclear weapon, would you torture them to get the information out of them? You know what? Yeah, I probably would. But then I stand up and I take the consequences.
Right.
Make it legal.
Yes.
Yeah, because there are certain things that as a society we can't tolerate.
Right.
Like, even in order to continue on and have any hope of having a healthy society, like even in an extreme circumstance where it was this or something worse, it still isn't something that should be celebrated. Like, and to take, I'll make this point real quick, and then we'll be done. About the Section 31 thing. If you do want to sort of look at it through the lens of the entire Star Trek franchise and talk about like other times we've seen Section 31 mentioned in other Star Trek projects. I mean, obviously it was introduced in Deep Space Nine. That was the first mention we ever had of it. And like, first of all, Captain Sisko does worse shit on his own than anyone in this Section 31 movie even thinks about doing.
Yes.
Captain Sisko does more.
Come on.
Captain Sisko does more morally ambiguous stuff like before breakfast than anybody in this entire movie does the whole time. And that's the thing. And the show wants you to think that it's morally ambiguous. The show doesn't want you to just approve of it and say, well, he definitely should have done that. That was the right thing to do. It wants you to be on the edge and be like, well, if he hadn't done it, maybe something worse would have happened, but I don't know if he really should have. Like, it wants you to sit in that tension. It doesn't make him a hero for doing something that, even if it is depicted as like a necessary thing that eventually yielded a better result, you're still not supposed to go, oh yeah, I'm totally on his side. He definitely should have done that.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point of it is
there was a case in this country, in the UK, where if
it's going to be a long story, let's just
I'll be quick. He was put on trial. He was court-martialed because basically he would go through, when they went through the fields after Taliban, they would shoot them on sight, because what had happened was that they would send their medics out. The medics would kneel beside the wounded Taliban, and the Taliban would take a knife and kill them.
Oh yeah.
So the policy became shoot them before, because they said and he legitimately said, I am not putting my medics in harm's way. They are unarmed. Most medics do carry a revolver, but you're not allowed to draw it unless you know that you're in mortal danger, and most medics won't. Most medics don't even carry arms. They carry first aid kits. So there was this big controversy over, well, how could he let him do that? How could you go out and just shoot people willy-nilly? Because we've been shown by experience that this is what these people do. But on a lighter note, they showed Chain of Command parts 1 and 2 side by side, and I watched on terrestrial UK TV, and I watched your review of it, and I thought, quite apart from the fact that both actors are utterly fantastic, and this is what Star Trek is about. It's not about sci-fi really, it's about two people kind of really interacting, one who wants the information and one who's not willing to give it, and the information he's giving isn't worth that much, and one who's really determined, and they were both utterly magnificent, and your review was fantastic, and thank you very much.
I still think it's my favorite TNG episode. Like,
but they showed it such a good episode, back, because normally you have to wait a day and a half, but they obviously thought, we'll show this as a 2-hour special at the end of the week.
You get Captain Jellicoe, and you get David Warner as a Cardassian. Like, come on, how do you?
Oh yeah, he was fantastic.
That's one of those Star Trek things.
Yeah, David.
I can't stand Jellicoe. I really can't. I really hate him.
I love him so much. I love him so much. I love it. You know, I get that fish out of the ready room. I love him so much, and it's like that. What I love about him is I still love Picard. Like, I'm still on, and I love Riker, and I'm kind of on Riker's side in their personality conflict, but like Jellicoe, I also kind of feel like Jellicoe's right. It's like, hey, like you're good, you might go to war in the next day or two, so fucking suck it up and do what he's telling you to do. Like,
I love the character. I mean, I love the portrayal. I don't like the character, but I like the character as a character in the show.
Ronnie Cox is an amazing actor too.
They give you enough. He's a great character because they give you enough that you can see his point of view, and you can see that he's not just an asshole for no reason. But they also give you enough so that you're still on the side of the people who are normally on the show. Like, it doesn't make you not like the regular characters who you're going to want to keep watching after this, but it doesn't make Jellicoe, and he just comes in and he's just a swaggering asshole for no reason.
No.
You know.
And Troy I
almost felt
forevermore.
I almost felt like the notes for that episode for him were, okay, like, do like the Kane mutiny, but if the captain was right.
Right, exactly. Okay, on that note, let's end this, shall we? Thank you all so much for being with me, and all of you, of course, who have been watching us as well. We do this at the end of every month, usually the last Sunday of every month. So we'll do it again next month on the 23rd of February. And this is something that is open to all of my paid supporters of the channel, basically patrons and members. So if you enjoy my YouTube work and you would like to become a supporter, you can either go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron, or click the join button on the YouTube page to become a channel member. And you might be able to get in time before I lock the meeting when there are too many of us in here. It filled up really fast today. Like within like 2 or 3 minutes, we had a full house.
We've all had a bad month, and we were waiting for your sprightly conversation.
Well, I hope it helped.
Like I said,
at least this week.
Yeah, you did. It's just been a very weird month this month.
Yeah, I think for all of us, for various reasons. Yeah.
We got a lot of snow here in Tallahassee. I just want to just throw that out.
I saw that. I saw it's snowing all across the South in areas that it almost never gets snow. Yeah. All right, that's it, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you. We'll see you next month.
Next
month.
Bye,
everybody.
Hope you had a good time.